Yarrow was cautious and a little wary of strangers. Northwest Smith, on the other hand, wasn't the least bit wary. Just about everybody that came his way got a big hello. Hello, Miss Beautiful Clone in a Jungle. Hello, Miss Gorgeous Redhead with worms for hair. Hello, Miss Supermodel made of black gelatinous slime. Northwest, said Yarrow, you're going to have to stop that. Stop what? Asked Northwest. Talking to strangers. It's just not a good idea. Why? Northwest wanted to know. Why shouldn't I talk to strangers? What harm is there in it? Is there something wrong with strangers? The answers to those questions and more are provided in Northwest of Earth by C.L. Moore. Now, C.L. Moore stands for Catherine Lucille Moore, and she is a European-American woman born in 1911. And in honor and celebration of Women's History Month, I decided to read this volume by her. She used her initials to disguise the fact that she was a woman writer because she was one of the first women authors in the field of speculative fiction. She was also married to author Henry Kuttner, and they collaborated on a lot of books together. So Northwest Smith of Earth is one of the characters that she created for Weird Tales magazine. Northwest is a space criminal who loves strange women he randomly meets, and the strange women always take him on all these bizarre adventures and end up being some kind of dangerous otherworldly horror, such as a space vampire, an elder goddess made of energy, or a Medusa alien with hypnotic powers. What's interesting is that C.L. Moore was a contemporary of Robert E. Howard and H.P. Lovecraft, and her stories fit the vibe of the Conan and Cthulhu stories that were also published in Weird Tales. So, these Northwest stories have the forward momentum and energy of the Conan stories, and also the bizarre, otherworldly horror of the H.P. Lovecraft Cthulhu mythos. Except, instead of fugly tentacle gods, all of the otherworldly horrors end up being some kind of sexy, dangerous power that either is or takes the appearance of a beautiful woman. In terms of what I liked about the book, I loved how bizarre and fascinating each of the creatures, entities, and scenarios that Northwest finds himself in. These were really imaginative stories that were a lot of fun to read. I also liked the prose. I thought it was sensuous and poetic without bogging things down. In terms of what I didn't like, Northwest was dull as a character. He's not as fascinating or exciting to read about as Conan. He's basically just described as this dude with very tan skin, a brown leather jacket, and gray eyes. But he doesn't have any special abilities. He doesn't have any interesting personality quirks or traits. He basically just carries a ray gun, and that's about it. We're told he's a space criminal and some kind of space smuggler, but in all the stories I read, he only actually tries to do something bad in one of the stories. He doesn't actually act like an anti-hero or anything like that. I also found the framework of the stories to be formulaic. Now, each story's content was interesting, but the framework that sets up the story was the same pretty much every time. Basically, Northwest is hanging out on the wrong side of town, and then a beautiful woman that's totally out of place will show up out of nowhere and just randomly ask Northwest, hey, do you want to go with me? And even though every time Northwest goes with one of these women, they turn out to be some kind of otherworldly horror and he almost gets killed, every time he's like, yeah, sure, I'll go along with you. Why not? So, because the framework was so formulaic, and the stories were meant to be read in Weird Tales magazine and not back-to-back in a big honkin' omnibus, I do recommend this book, but with a caveat. Don't read them all back-to-back like I did. I actually only read 3/4 of the book and eventually was like, I really need a break because they start to blend together and feel really similar. But if you read one story, take a break, give it a couple days, maybe read something else, then read the next Northwest story, give it a little more time, come back, read another Northwest story, and kind of space them out like that, then I think the stories would be a lot more enjoyable. And this becomes a 4-star read that I do recommend as long as you space out the stories. And the only other thing I just want to add that I thought was a little silly about the book was one of the ways that C.L. Moore tries to add tension is as Northwest is getting deeper and deeper into some kind of dangerous scenario, she'll say, he loosens his ray gun in the holster. And then a couple paragraphs later, he loosens his ray gun in the holster. And then the next page or two, he loosens his ray gun in the holster. And eventually I was kind of like, how much more loose can this ray gun get in the holster? Like, it's probably fallen out at this point. So I just thought that was a silly thing about the story. But overall, I did enjoy it. Thanks for watching.